Hello, it's another week of Business Live. Welcome to the program. In our lineup for tonight, government has extended the deadline for the domestic debt exchange program again to January 31 after a backlash from stakeholders. We'll hear from a financial analyst who says the program, if not managed well for the banks, could worsen the already existing low confidence in the sector.
This is not managed very well for the banks. It will affect them. As we speak now, one can comfortably say that confidence in the financial sector is at an all-time low.
Meantime, government charged to ensure domestic debt exchange program complies with international financial reporting standards. We'll hear from the Chartered Institute of Accountants, Ghana.
Encourage the institute to venture into that topic so that we have an in-depth analysis of it and then be able to see whether we can offer useful advice to our government.
Plus, National Communications Authority grants provisional approval for the sale of Vodafone to Telecel. Welcome back. Straight to our very first story. Government has extended the deadline for the domestic debt exchange program again to January 31 after backlash from stakeholders. This is the third time the Finance Ministry has extended the deadline. A tweet from the Office of the Finance Ministry reads, building consensus is key to a successful economic recovery for Ghana, pending further stakeholder engagement with institutional and individual investors recently invited to join the debt exchange program. Government is extending expiration of the domestic debt exchange program to January 31. So this is coming from the Office of the Finance Minister. Meanwhile, senior lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School and executive director of Center for Economics, Finance and Inequality Studies, Dr. Benjamin Amoah, says the program, if not managed well for the banks, could worsen the already existing low confidence in the sector. He spoke earlier on the marketplace.
Having an exchange program that is going to hard hit the banks in terms of their investment income, not the loan income. The banks have an interest. Two, you are also talking to the banks to be dealing or calling individuals to come and sign on this voluntary debt exchange program. What does it mean? Clearly, if individuals are hitting back at the banks, it has implications for deposits. And so the banks find themselves in a situation where they themselves as institutions are being affected. And then two, because they serve as a front, the primary dealers for these bonds, they also have to come in to deal with their client or customers on the other side. We should not forget the stability fund. I don't think it's only for the banks. It goes beyond the banks. It's open to the public through the financial institution. And so the banks have a major stake. And if their demands have not been met halfway, or the demands have not been met, it goes clearly to say that the banks will have to, for the time being, call for a move away by their members on this exchange program until they have a better understanding, a better appreciation of their points by the government. Then maybe they will come back and then advise their members, that is the banks, on what to do. But currently, the strategy of the banks is acceptable. They are in the forefront of all of this. And if this is not managed very well for the banks, it will affect them. As we speak now, one can comfortably say that confidence in the financial sector is at an all-time low. And definitely this is going to trickle into deposit, which will also impact on banks and businesses. So we need to look at it and address the concerns of the banks urgently.
Well, government has been charged to ensure that the international financial reporting standards are complied with if it goes ahead to implement the domestic debt exchange program. According to the Institute of Accountants, Ghana, even though its effect on individuals and businesses cannot be ruled out, the program must adhere to the London-based Accounting Standards Board and address record keeping, account reporting, and other aspects of financial reporting. Sena Dake is president of the ICAG, and she spoke to Joy Business at the 40th graduation admission ceremony of the institute held in Accra. There is more in this report.
According to the president of the ICAG, government's intended domestic debt exchange program, which forms part of the IMF conditionalities, will have implications for financial reporting, hence the need to ensure it meets global accounting practices.
ICAG Ghana has made submissions already in the process, and some of the submissions are tilted to the fact that the debt restructuring will definitely have implications for financial reporting. And what we stand by is to comply with the international financial reporting standards, because there will be losses and they should be accounted for. They must be recognized in the financial statements, and that is where we have to go, because this is a global matter, and the fact that we are complying with standards will give confidence in the public financial management system, as well as any other financial statement that goes out, because the financial systems will be clearly showing that we are applying high standards.
Overall best candidate level 3. Can you keep appreciating him? Richard Osafo.
Alumnus of the University of Ghana, Richard Osafo emerged overall best level 3 candidate of the 40th CA professional exams. In an interview with Joy Business, he admonished members of the ICAG to adhere to best accounting practices.
As a professional accountant, you should know that whatever that you do, whatever you say, do your practices, you need to be very careful, because if you do not abide by our principles, basically you are tarnishing the image of yourself, one, the business or your employer, two, and then the noble profession we are all a member of, three. So you need to really uphold the principles. When we are swearing you, we mentioned the 5 principles: integrity, objectivity, confidentiality, competence and due care. Constantly updating our skill set and the professional behavior. So I believe that every accountant out there ethically must uphold these 5 key principles, and probably be more.
Meanwhile, Chancellor of the University of Professional Studies, Accra, Dr. K.K. Sapon, who was special guest at the event, urged accounting professionals to collaborate in order to remain effective.
I encourage the Institute to enrich its CPD by covering contemporary topical issues, which will fill those gaps to enable its members and graduates respond adequately to the needs of our country. I look at the CPD for the coming this year. I didn't see the Ghana government domestic debt exchange program. I encourage the Institute to venture into that topic so that we have an in-depth analysis of it, and then be able to see whether we can offer useful advice to our government.
Minister of Education, Dr. Yao Edichum, however, admonished the ICAG graduates to be custodian of the code of ethics that guides the profession. A speech was read on his behalf.
The code recognizes that you operate in a diverse, demanding, dynamic, and complex environment. It acknowledges that you are often faced with challenges and difficult choices. However, professionalism and skills you bring to these choices as individuals, as an institute, as an international organization, has a major impact on your respective reputation and will shape the future of your profession and Ghana as a nation.
The first 2023 ICAG graduation and admission ceremony coincide with the Institute's 60th anniversary celebration.
On the debt exchange program, rethink the domestic debt exchange program since it's destructive. This advice coming from a financial consultant, Dr. Daniel Sedo, as government races against time to have all individual bondholders sign on to the terms of the debt exchange program. I beg your pardon. Now, individual bondholders have up till the close of work today to sign on to the program, else risk losing some of their investments. However, there are fears that the government will be unable to get the 80% buy-in of the bondholders by close of work today, to what is believed to be lack of extensive consultations and engagements. Here is Dr. Sedo.
You need a certain debt sustainability level to engage IMF. So the approach is to do a haircut. If the haircut is not working, can you cut something else, which is expenditure? If you can, yes. I said the other issues they deal with, that's the grant and things, assuming they postpone that for 1 year, what would we get? There are many options I suggested. And they need to look at all those options and see whether they can reduce the cost. It's about reducing cost. It's not necessarily taking somebody else's money, but the government should find ways to reduce its cost. There are many ways we can reduce costs if we want to. The real solution is to look at our expenditure. So we need to go through the expenditure and cut where we need to cut. We need to be bold to do that. I do not think that anybody is going to sit back for government to take their money without fighting, except we want to live in chaos. And I don't think that's the option government wants to pick.
Looking at government's position,
we should tell ourselves that we are blessed enough. We have resources. It's about how we deploy our resources. That's where the issue is. So don't let us think that if IMF doesn't come, we can't do anything for ourselves. I do not share that view. We are human beings, and we should be resilient enough to think through the issues and find appropriate solutions. There are people in this country who can help this process steer us properly. So let's do that.
You're still watching Business Live with me, Pious Kojo Backah. Now, there is an interesting article titled How Debt Exchange Will Impact Your Pocket, authored by Emmanuel Owusu, policy analyst and executive director of the Movement for Responsible and Accountable Governance. He joins me in studio for more on this. Grateful, Ima, you could join us on Business Live.
Thank you.
Now, I am interested on how the exchange will affect my pocket, first off.
Well, to begin with, thank you for the platform. I would analyze this in three folds, because you have the individual pocket, you have the corporate pocket. So we'd want to look at it from the individual point of view. So you have individuals who have put their money, placed their money with brokerage companies and financial houses, and these are monies that probably they put it down for future use. Now, government of Ghana is saying that I'm unable to give you these monies now, but I'll give you these monies later date. What that happens is that it affects your pocket, because, of course, you probably need that money for some business engagements here and there. You probably need that money for some health needs. You probably need that money for your wards fees. Then the next effect is that the money is not coming, so eventually your pocket is depleted. You look at the corporate pocket, and a typical financial institution, you look at the income of a financial institution. Most of their income comes from interest on investment. So you are looking at a situation whereby these monies are not going to come, because for a typical financial institution, 65% of those income come from investment, interest on investment. Now, government of Ghana is saying that I'm unable to give you that money today, but I'll give it to you later. And you look at their balance sheet. Their balance sheet is not looking good. And I'll give you an example.
Right.
This is the financiers. I won't mention their name.
Okay.
You have their assets, financial assets, close to about 7 billion out of the 13 billion assets that the company has.
Okay.
Government is saying that, and these are assets into GOG bonds that they've bought. Government is saying that I'm unable to give you that money now, but I'll give it to you later. The next impact on the bank is that the bank will run into liquidity.
Yeah.
And when they run into liquidity, you and I will not have our money. You have business people who go to these banks to say that give us money for expansion. The banks will now will begin to tell you that, hey, I'm cash-strapped. I'm unable to give you that money for that business expansion that you want to do. So the businessman is also impacted. Business expansion is obviously the business will look at way outs. The way out is that you and I may be off.
Okay.
We will probably become unemployed. Business will be looking at laying off. Business cannot expand. It affects the overall economy. You look at and I want to come to the financial institutions again.
Okay.
So the NIC, for example, for the insurance companies,
sector, yeah.
it mandates them to put chunk of their financial resources, financial assets into bonds. I mean, close to about over 50%. So if you have such a situation, the insurance companies are going to go on their knees. I foresee, I won't be a prophet of doom, but if care is not taken, we're going to have some banks close. where we're going to have some banks go down. We're going to have investor confidence is gradually going to go low.
Yeah.
You know that we have come from
the banking sector.
Already. I mean, the Ghanaians are not so, encouraged about taking their monies back. And now this one is also going to put them in a more difficult state. I foresee some mergers and acquisitions happening, because some of our local banks will not be able to sustain the shock. And so you'll have some of them, coming together to be able to, stay strong. We're likely to have a financial recession in Ghana because the financial sector is a bedrock of to drive the economy. And here's the case whereby the financial sector is going to crash. So I would want to say that if this debt exchange program is not carefully handled well, you would have a situation whereby the system is just going to come to a halt. The next effect on the economy is that we're going to have wealth depletion.
Okay.
Wealth depletion is where you and I mean, money circulation is going to be largely impacted. And you would have businesses also fold, and business will not be able to expand. Business will not be able to, bring up the new innovations, because innovations comes with, funding and, things that they may want to do. So I would want to say, that government should probably take a second look at this because the next effect is more huge than we see it.
Okay, so I want to find out from you, I know this book is meant to educate the public. Now, for individuals and businesses, what should be the takeaway from this book you've written? What must they look out for?
Well, for individuals and for businesses, probably at this point, businesses should really look at their strategy, should really look at your operational expenses, because obviously we're likely to go on a very long haul on this debt exchange program. We're not too clear when it's going to materialize. So with immediate effect, companies must begin to look at operational issues. Where can we cut down costs? What new can we do within the measure? When COVID struck, companies began to look at other ways of running their business. Staff were asked to work from home, things like that. So companies should begin to look at other means of running their businesses. I'm sure when that is done well and that is done accurately, businesses will come to a level playing field.
All right. You say that the way forward is to halt the program for lack of transparency, and of course, government should assume, some of the burden. Now, help me explain this further. This point you're making further.
Well, of course, the government of Ghana, the government of the Republic, has kept its purse, and is asking you and I to give away something. I am saying on this platform that government should really look at its purse way forward. You have we've seen some line items in the budget. That we may want to shelve for now. Government should probably look at that, because once you are asking Ghanaians to share the burden, you must be ready to share the bigger burden. For now, as we see it, it's not too clear what kind of burden government is sharing with us. So I think government should look at that. Secondly, what probably government should do, we should deepen the conversation. I have seen that they've extended
the deadline.
Well, yes, so that conversation must go on. We must deepen the conversation. We must do and have more engagement. There's so much opaqueness in the whole arrangement. Even industry players are not do not really understand what's going on. We may want to it will be in the interest of government to engage and have a lot more and have the stakeholders understand really what they want to do. What's the end goal? As I speak with you, we are not too sure what the end goal is. What does government want to achieve at the end of this debt exchange program? I'm not sure. For us as policy analysts, we haven't seen it. So because if you look at the structure of the policy, it's not too clear. So I would want to say that government should probably come more clearer on its goals, what it wants to achieve. Because once you are able to carry the people along on what you want to achieve, I'm sure industry players will see reason to what the government wants to do.
But in a minute, we have 2 weeks for government for us to end the engagement.
Yes.
for which reason we've extended the deadline to 31st January. Do you think it's enough for us to have a broader consultation?
I don't think it's enough. Probably we will probably look at a month or two.
All right.
We should look at a month or two because there are too many stakeholders involved in this conversation. You can't do that in the next 2 weeks.
Sure. We'll certainly keep an eye on that sector and keep listeners posted or viewers posted. Now, Emmanuel Owusu is a policy analyst and executive director of the Movement for Responsible and Accountable Governance. As, of course, he authored the book titled How Debt Exchange Will Impact Your Pocket. Grateful, Emma, for your time. Still watching Business Live with me, Pious Kojo Backah. Still to come, National Communications Authority grants provisional approval for the sale of Vodafone to Telecel. Hello, welcome back. This is still Business Live with me, Pious Kojo Backah. Now, the National Communications Authority has granted provisional approval for the sale of Vodafone Ghana to Telecel Group. According to the National Communications Authority, it granted a conditional approval after examining a revised agreement presented by the parties. The telecoms regulator said it granted approval for the transfer of the 70% majority shares in Ghana Telecommunications Company Limited owned by Vodafone Ghana to Telecel Group, subject to concessions made by the seller and representations made by the Telecel to the NCA. It will be recalled that in January 2022, the NCA received an application from Vodafone Ghana for the transfer of 70% of its majority shares held by the seller to the buyer. Moving on to some other stories, the Ghana Revenue Authority has justified a $773 back tax bill it imposed on telecommunication company MTN. MTN, in an earlier statement, contested the back tax bill, describing it as inaccurate. Responding to the issue, the GRA maintained that the action was right in law. Here is more.
In a statement issued and copied to Joy Business, the Ghana Revenue Authority, GRA, stated that Section 36 of the Revenue Administration Act 2016, Act 915, mandates the Commissioner General to audit the tax affairs of a person. And it is in this accordance with this provision that the authority conducted a tax audit on MTN Ghana for the tax period 2014 to 2018. The audit was conducted as required by law, adhering to the principles of fairness and transparency, it added. The authority explained that, in the case of MTN Ghana, it followed due process in serving a notice of assessment and engaged the company, as required by law, to ensure that it communicates the basis of assessment as well as several avenues available for objection as required in Section 42 of the Revenue Administration Act. It emphasized that MTN Ghana has been reminded at all times in the authority's interactions with them about their rights to object to any tax decision by the Commissioner General. The GRA also reminded taxpayers of the need to declare and pay the right amount of taxes at all times.
Now, the Association of Ghana Industries has reiterated its willingness to support business concepts that will encourage trading activities under the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. Speaking at the VIP launch of the Leno exclusive showroom in Accra, chairman of the AGI Greater Accra region, Tionam Apalu, indicated that such moves will help build Ghana's economy. Here's more.
An Ghanaian-owned company dealing in interior goods has partnered with 17 Spanish companies to provide quality service to Ghana's housing and hospitality industry. Addressing the media after a tour of the showroom, Mr. Akbelu lauded the initiative, saying he's optimistic such collaborations will foster a good trading relationship with international markets.
You realize that the Continental Free Trade Agreement requires that you set up your production in Ghana. In fact, part of the requirement for trading under the Continental Free Trade is that you have to have evidence of goods of origin. What it means is that you must be seen producing locally. And so this creates the promoters an opportunity to set up the production for all of these great products we've seen for the purpose of they benefiting directly from the Continental Free Trade Agreement. Our belief is that if we have a lot more of these establishments, it would continue to add up to our GDP and obviously help to stabilize the currency that we've been struggling to stabilize in recent times.
Chief Executive Officer of Delino Exclusive, Edmond Dele Jr., observed the lack of skills personnel in Ghana, but says his outfit's long-term plan is to establish a workshop to train artisans to meet international standards.
What Europe has actually, the borders that they've opened, any raw materials coming from Ghana, they don't have to pay any taxes and duties on it, so it encourages them to be using our raw materials. What's even more important is about workshops, yes, where we actually improve the skills of our artisans, yes, letting them meet international standards, because the challenge here is not the products you have, it's about the skilled personnel, yes, and we are lacking that. We are lacking the skills personnel where they actually do certain jobs that meet international standards. So we're going to start doing workshop program where we actually, Delino actually certifies those certain workers that actually run through Delino. So I think that in a whole...
Thanks so much for being part of Business Live for tonight. I am Pious Kojo Backah. For more news, log on to myjoyonline.com/business. Let's connect same time tomorrow. Bye-bye.